Okay, it is 2 p.m. on the dot. Welcome, everybody. So this is an info session for the Center County Solar and EV Charger Co-op. My name is Henry McKay. I am the Pennsylvania Program Director of Solar United Neighbors, and we are running the solar co-op in Center County. And I want to introduce my colleague, Monica Carey. Monica, would you like to say hi and who and where you are?
Hi, I'm Monica. I am the Pennsylvania Program Associate with Solar United Neighbors. I am based out of Lancaster, and I am relatively new to Sun, so I am excited to be learning about the co-op with all of you.
Thanks, Monica. And yeah, we'll be the two people at Solar United Neighbors who you'll probably be interacting most with as you consider and hopefully eventually join the solar co-op. And then I think we're also, it looks like we're joined by Betsy Whitman, who is one of our partners on the solar co-op, along with Patton Township. And we're gonna, in a moment, we're gonna give her a chance to say why she's supporting the co-op and also why she has become a member of the solar co-op. So first, Solar United Neighbors, we are a nonprofit organization. We're not a solar installer ourselves. We are a consumer advocate, a solar educator, and an organizer around solar policy issues. And we help people. Our model is we help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. And the main way that we help people go solar is through programs like this, these solar co-ops. This is going to have three parts of this presentation. First, we'll talk about solar technology, all the different pieces, components, and pieces of hardware that are involved in a solar installation and how they interact with each other. We'll talk about this solar co-op process, so how this is something that can make it easier and hopefully cheaper for you to go solar. And then we'll talk about the money. We'll talk about how much this costs, the different ways to pay for it, and how it saves you money, how you think of this like an investment. And I want to say thanks to our partners. So we are running the solar co-op in close cooperation with a number of local governments and local organizations in Center County. So Patton Township, the Borough of Bellefonte, the Moshannon Group of the Sierra Club, College Township, and the Sustainable Center Region Initiative from the Center Region COG, the Center Region Council of Governments. And here I want to give Betsy a chance just to say hi and say a little bit about why she's supporting the solar co-op. Betsy, are you able to unmute yourself and speak for a moment?
We're working on it.
Oh,
we got it.
There we go.
Okay. You want me just to talk then?
Yep.
Okay, no vocal. So yeah, I feel like this is a little bit of a testimonial, and I'm but also about something that I'm very passionate about. So I'm actually kind of wearing three hats in this process. I am a supervisor in a local government, Patton Township, and as part of that, I'm also the chair of the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee, which has been working on there we go. Sorry, is that us? Yeah. Been working on a climate action and adaptation plan. It would be the Center Region Planning Agency. So we have here, a 100-page document. We've set up very detailed objectives and some goals associated with that, and one of which is to reduce energy consumption by 30% in our homes. So then into our laps drops a Solar United Neighbors with this option to form a co-op in Center County. I'm also wearing the hat of a community organizer, which I've done on many issues. And so I'm used to sending out e-blasts and putting up yard signs. I'm also wearing the hat of a homeowner. And it really is that last hat that, is making this very real and very exciting for me. I think I'm echoing what a lot of people on this call feel, that the climate crisis is overwhelming. I've done a lot of research on this in my many hats, and research tells us that, yes, we need to be very real with the facts. We need to be very vocal with those facts, but we also need to be very hopeful with our actions. And I go through almost on a daily basis this feeling overwhelmed and feeling that I'm being proactive. And, you know, the decision to look into solar as a very real possibility for our home is one of those actions that keeps me grounded and keeps me going forward on this. And I just want to say that what we've, you know, my husband Dave and I decided to join co-op members. For me, initially, it was going to be my way of learning some of the details about the technology. My husband is a research scientist, science geek, I call him. And so he was going to be my in-house resource as I learned new parts of this. And we started doing some number crunching, look at the energy bill. And lo and behold, it may be actually a very real possibility for us to go solar. So I am professionally vested in this, but I'm very personally vested in this. And I couldn't be more excited at this point. So thank you for the opportunity to let me go on.
Thank you so much, Betsy. I will pull my slides back up here, and you can go back on mute. Okay, there they are. And I have, let's see, one other testimonial I'd like to share. This is from Joan Tostevin from the borough of Bellefonte, who was also one of the kind of early solar and EV adopters in the area. And she's just going to give, this is just under 5 minutes, I think, just a tour of her own solar installation and her electric vehicle charger, and how that experience being solar powered has gone for her.
Hi, I'm Joan Tostevin. Our home and vehicle are charged by the sun. We recommend that for our earth and for your own long-term pocketbook savings that you should consider putting solar energy and backup batteries on your home, and consider driving either a plug-in hybrid vehicle or a full battery-powered electric vehicle. We've done all of these things. However, there was no co-op available when we did these projects, such as Solar United Neighbors. Therefore, our costs were somewhat higher due to both being early adopters and doing these installations on our own. What I'd like to do is show you a little bit about what we've done over the last several years. Well, we started off with an electric vehicle in 2013, which included the purchase of an electric vehicle wall charger that we put here in our garage. We had been spending about $150 per month on gas with our internal combustion engine. After purchasing our car and the wall charger, our cost for the electric gas dropped to $50 per month. Now that we have solar energy on our home, the monthly charge for all electricity used in our garage, for the lights, the garage door opener, and the wall charger has ranged from about $11 per month. Adding the battery backup system brought it down to just $7.85 a month. That's the grid hookup fee for the separate electric contract we have with West Penn Power for our garage electricity. So 2 years later, we put solar energy on our home. The installer we hired reviewed our home and our electric bills. He made a recommendation to install 32 panels, which you can see in this video. They cover an estimated 101% of our electric usage. The upfront cost was high, but with the federal tax credit, we were able to afford the installation. The cost was about $38,000, but that was reduced with a 30% federal tax credit we got at the time. That credit equaled approximately $11,400 that we were able to use over the next couple of years to reduce our federal taxes. And the value of our home was increased by $20,000 by the underwriter for our homeowner's insurance policy as a result of this installation. And we are in a historic district, and as you As a result of this installation, Bellefonte created a solar ordinance that now allows for solar installation throughout town, including within the historic district. And finally, in June of this year, we installed the battery backup system for our solar array. It's located here in our pantry. We have received 2 bills on the house since this installation. Because of the size of our array and the use of this battery backup system, we have actually been selling back energy to the grid through net metering rather than paying to run all of our electrical stuff here at home. In the long run, we are helping reduce greenhouse gas emissions and significantly reducing our monthly cost to have a roof over our head and to move around in the community. So can you.
Okay, so let's talk about solar technology. Now, obviously, the most important component of a solar installation is the solar panels themselves, also called solar modules. And these are the big rectangular devices that convert sunlight into electrical current. And the dominant technology is still silicon solar. So these little blue squares you see in here are thinly sliced wafers of silicon crystal that when the sunlight hits them, that sunlight excites the electrons in those silicon molecules and they start to flow. When you get a flow of electrons, you have an electrical current. Now, solar panels produce direct current electricity, DC energy, but what you use in your home, what comes out of your electrical outlets is AC, alternating current. So you need a device called an inverter that will switch that DC into AC so you can use it. And there's several different types of inverter out there and many different models within those types. And really at this point, it helps to understand, string inverter, DC optimized microinverter, but you don't need to know which is the best option for you until you're having a conversation with your solar installer. But the traditional option is the string inverter. So this is what you see on the left. This is one box that is located usually somewhere inside your home, maybe near your electrical service panel, that converts all of that power into AC current. You can also use a microinverters. This is becoming increasingly popular, and this is where you have one inverter clipped to the back of each panel. Then they're much smaller, hence the name microinverter, and they do that same DC to AC conversion. Inverters are also the computerized brain of your solar system. They're connected to the internet. Usually, they're communicating. They're sharing your power generation in real time, usually to like an app on your phone or on your computer, so you can monitor your system remotely. And they're doing something called power optimization. Now, as the sunlight conditions change on each individual panel, there's always going to be a different level of voltage and current that are going to give you the most power out of that solar panel at any given time. And that string inverter is always calibrating those optimal voltage and current levels to make sure you're getting as much power as possible. And that's going to be changing as the sun moves and shade, conditions differ on parts of your roof. And it's going to be different if one panel over here has some shade and one panel over here has more sunshine. String inverters can only handle so much of that variation before they start kind of reverting to the lowest common denominator and you lose a little power. Microinverters can do that power optimization at the panel level rather than at the string levels on entire rows of solar panels. So microinverters are often better for installations that have more uneven, more variation in sunlight and shade conditions on each panel. Microinverters also let you monitor panel production at the panel level. So when you're looking at your app and it's telling you what you're producing, if there's one panel that has gone bad, you'll know exactly which panel it is because that microinverter will stop sending power. But with a string inverter, you might only know which row of panels that faulty panel is. And then there's this kind of hybrid solution, which is a string inverter and then DC optimizers. So you have a central string inverter that does the inverting, and then you have the DC optimizers attached to the back of each solar panel that do that power optimization. So you get those benefits of carefully, precisely calibrated voltage and current levels, similar to microinverters. Some installers offer all three options. Some installers will offer a smaller selection of them. Some installers will only do one or the other. And we won't know what that case will be for the solar co-op until installers start bidding and telling us which equipment they want to use. And then all of this connects to your electrical service panel in your home. So it goes into the general mix of electricity in your home. It's not like you have the separate solar circuit that parts of your house are powered by solar and everything else is grid power. It just goes into the general mix of electricity serving your whole home. And this is a connection that your installer will set up for you. Will connect it into your service panel. And then, of course, if you're doing a roof mounted system, you need to attach it to the roof somehow. And there's lots of different racking systems out there for different roof types. The most common is asphalt or composite shingle roofs. And you have this option on the left where there is a hole drilled into the roof all the way through to the rafters. So it's a very secure connection. And then that penetration point, that hole they drilled, is protected by some kind of usually silicone sealant, and then a flashing, so a kind of sheet of metal that directs water away from the penetration point. And a good installer, will, this is one measure of good installer, is how well do they do these penetration points that don't, in a way that doesn't cause any leaks in your roof. If you have a standing seam metal roof, you can have a racking system that directly clamps to those standing seams and negates the need for any kind of penetration, which is nice. And similarly, on a flat roof, you want to avoid penetration, so you can just have a ballasted system that is just weighted down, sitting on top of that flat roof. And this is a good place to note that when you're installing solar on a roof, you want to make sure that roof isn't too old. If you are going to need to do roof work during the life of your solar system, you're going to have to pay somebody to take the panels off and put them back on, and that can be fairly pricey. So ideally, you want to be putting solar on a new roof, or one that is going to last longer than your solar system. This is one reason that metal roofs are great, because they last so long, more like 50 years compared to the 25 to 30-year life of your solar system. So you're very much less likely to have to worry about roof issues underneath those solar panels. And then, of course, if your roof isn't suitable for solar, or you'd rather put it on the ground and you have the space, you can do a ground-mounted solar installation as well. And there's some trade-offs here. Ground-mount systems are almost always more expensive. That's because concrete needs to be poured, trenching needs to be dug to carry the power, the power line from the solar to your home. But they often can get a power production boost. One, because you can position and orient them just right to maximize the energy they produce. You can get them facing due south as opposed to whatever angle your roof happens to be facing, and you can get them pitched just right. They're more easy to clean if you want to brush the snow off of them in the winter. And then also they run more efficiently because they're cooler. Solar panels on a roof, they're pretty close to the roof surface. There's not a lot of room for air to circulate around them, but you can see there's a lot of room for air circulation with these ground-mounted panels. And as solar panels are cooler, they operate more efficiently because there's an inverse relationship between temperature and resistance in those the wires. There are a couple important units to understand when you're talking about solar. There's the watt and the watt hour, or if you multiply them by 1,000, the kilowatt and the kilowatt hour. A kilowatt is a measure of power, which is kind of an instantaneous quality, and then a kilowatt hour is a measure of energy, which is basically power extended over time. So the most useful way to describe the size of a solar system is in kilowatts rather than number of panels. So you can see this in this example here. There's 12 panels. It's a 3 kilowatt array because they're all 250 watt panels. And this kind of dates this slide too, because a 250 watt panel these days is pretty tiny. Most panels are closer to or above 300 watts, even over 400 watts in some cases. So if you want to kind of describe the power production capacity of your system, like the firepower of your system, you want to talk about kilowatts rather than number of panels. And then if you're trying to talk about how much energy you're generating in any given period of time, so you would use kilowatt hours to measure how much energy that generated. That's also a unit you probably recognize from your electric bill. You're paying, West Penn Power or whoever it is, based on the number of kilowatt hours you purchase from them. Most residential systems are somewhere between 4 kilowatts and 12 kilowatts, although in Pennsylvania they can get as large as 50 kilowatts for households. Commercial systems can get much larger than that, and they do. And a typical solar panel is usually about 5.5 feet tall, about 3.5 feet wide, and weighs somewhere around 40 pounds. Now, not every site is good for solar, and you need to meet all 3 of these criteria for it to be solar suitable. You want to be facing ideally due south, but really anywhere between due east, south, and west can be suitable. So if you have kind of a west-facing roof and an east-facing roof, you could put solar on both sides, and you'd have your afternoon solar and your morning solar. You want to have enough space. Roughly 250 square feet is kind of the industry rule of thumb, and you want that to be contiguous space. As it gets broken up by different roof faces and dormers and chimneys and those kind of things, it can make it more expensive to put solar up there. It can reduce the amount of solar you can fit, and it could be prohibitive if there isn't 250 square feet of contiguous space available. And then ideally you want to have no shading at all, but small amounts of shading can be acceptable, and your installer can do a pretty rigorous shade analysis to figure out if there is too much shading present on your roof. Now, all these components together, here's how they work. So let's say it's a sunny day like it is today in Pittsburgh. Your panels are drenched in sunshine. They're generating a lot of energy. It's direct current energy. It's going right down to your inverter where it's being switched from DC into AC. And then it goes right into your electrical service panel, and you're using that energy in your home. Now, if you built a system that produces close to or at your annual energy usage, during the summer, you're going to be overproducing energy a lot. You're going to be generating more than you actually need. So whatever extra you have will be sent back out through your electric meter, onto the grid, and your utility is going to give you a credit on your bill for whatever extra you export, because they're going to go ahead and sell it probably at full price to some of your neighbors. So you build up these essentially banked kilowatt hours on your bill, everything you exported during the summer, and then in the winter, you're probably not generating as much energy as you need. Whatever extra you need, you can get from the utility just like you always do. So you're never without power because you're still tied to the grid. But if you've built up this bank of kilowatt hours over the summer, you can, instead of paying for the extra energy, you can spend down your bank. So this is what lets you cover an entire's worth of energy with solar, even though it's not evenly sunny all year, because you can build up this bank in the summer, spend it down in the winter. And this only applies to a grid-tied solar system, so you're connected to the electrical grid, as you see here. This is the most common and cost-effective and simple way to go solar. If you want to go completely off-grid, you need battery backup and probably maybe another form of on-site generation, like a generator, because you will need to be providing all of your power as opposed to relying on the grid at night and during the winter. And when you're off-grid, of course, there's no net metering. There's no flow of energy between you and the grid. That can be much more expensive because batteries are still fairly expensive, and it's a more complex installation. You probably won't see the kind of financial savings you would get from a grid-tied system. So here's an example. This is from Penelec, but all the utilities in Pennsylvania need to do this the same way, although the way they write it on the bill might look differently. But this is a bill of somebody, an actual customer who has already gone solar. And you can see these sections here called usage information for meter number redacted. And there's a measure of kilowatt hours delivered and kilowatt hours received, because there's this two-way flow of energy between the house and the grid. And you can see at February 11th, the beginning of the billing period, they had 1,135 kilowatt hours banked. And then after that, they had contributed 718 kilowatt hours, but withdrew 725, so that their bank went down a little bit. So this is a February-March bill, so it's not super sunny and they're using a lot of energy. So they've been drawing on their bank, as is typical in the winter. And usually sometime around March, April, they'll start generating more than they need and build up that bank again. And then you can see their total bill is only $10.38, which is basically that fixed customer charge that you can't avoid. You know, it's something you pay whether you use any energy or not. So they've virtually zeroed out their entire bill with this solar installation, and are just paying that minimum charge. So what happens when the power goes out? You know, a lot of people think, oh, well, if I have solar and the sun is shining, then I should still have power. And unfortunately, that's not the case, because when the grid shuts down, your inverter can tell, it's always kind of listening to the grid, and it will stop your solar system from feeding into your home, which means you will also experience the power outage just like your neighbors. This is a safety mechanism. It happens automatically and almost instantaneously, and it's so your system doesn't backfeed energy back onto this grid and potentially injure the line workers who are up there, you know, working on what they think are dead power lines. If you want to have power during outages, you need batteries installed in addition to solar, and those batteries will just remain charged all the time, not being used until the event of an outage, and then will automatically kick in and power usually just parts of your home. Batteries are still fairly expensive, so people generally aren't buying as enough to cover all the energy needs of their home for a very long period of time. Usually they'll pick a few critical loads like some lights, you know, maybe the refrigerator and freezer so your food doesn't go bad, maybe a modem so you still have internet access, but other things that they deem less critical will not be powered by that battery. So you probably only want batteries if you have, you know, frequent outages, if you want that resilience in the event of power outages, which do seem to be getting more frequent in Pennsylvania, like a lot of other places, but they are at extra cost, and they do eliminate or really reduce a lot of the financial savings you'd see from going solar, because batteries are still pretty pricey. Now we'll do some frequently asked questions in this slide, and then we'll take a quick break for any questions you have. You can stick your questions right in the chat here and we'll answer them. Or when we break for questions, you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you if you prefer to do it that way. So warranties, there's a number of different warranties on parts of your solar system. The installer often will have a labor warranty, or sometimes they call it a workmanship or roof penetration warranty. And this is protecting you against any issues that might arise from the installation itself, you know, damage to your roof or home, or leaks that result from the installation. There's also, you know, like any appliance you buy, there's a manufacturer's warranty on the panels and on the inverters, typically 10, 12, 15 years, protecting you against manufacturing flaws. And then there's probably most importantly on the solar panels, there's the production warranty. This also comes from the manufacturer, and it is a measure of how slowly those panels will degrade in efficiency over time. So like everything, as solar panels age, they produce a little bit less energy each year, just natural wear and tear. And your production warranty tells you, often it's expressed as by year 20, your panels will be at least 80% of their original efficiency. Or maybe they'll say each year you'll lose no more than 1% or 0.5% of your original efficiency. This is a good proxy for the quality of a solar panel, the strength of the production warranty, and it's a helpful way to compare one model of solar panel to another. Going solar may affect your homeowner's insurance. It may raise or lower your premiums. We've heard of cases of both happening. It's probably most likely to raise them because you're adding to the rebuild cost of your home. You're adding to essentially the value of your home, and that is part of the calculation of what your premium is. Or some insurers have lowered premiums for people who go solar. Sometimes it's because they have like environmental incentive programs. But we highly recommend checking with your insurance company if you're thinking about going solar, just so you have an idea of what those costs are and they don't surprise you later on. Solar systems are low maintenance systems. There's no moving parts. They're very durable. You shouldn't expect a lot of maintenance issues during their life. We do recommend having a professional look at your system around once every 5 years, just to make sure everything is working properly. Although, a lot of people will catch performance issues much sooner than that because they're obsessively watching their solar production app, showing it off to their friends, and they'll notice, all of a sudden production has dropped, and it's probably because some component failed. As I said a few times, these are long-term investment. These last 25, 30 years, it takes somewhere between 8 and 12 for it to pay for itself. So it might not be the right time to go solar if you think you'll be moving soon. That said, there's very strong evidence that solar adds to the resale value of your home. But because you have this cool asset that a lot of people are into, that also lowers the cost of living in that house, you can sell your home for more. And that may be a way you can recoup some of your remaining investment if you sell your home with solar on it. There was a study that the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory did, 22,000 home sales across 8 states, including Pennsylvania, homes with and without solar, and they saw there was strong evidence that there's a clear price premium for solar powered homes. And then if you're in a historic district, that might be something that would require an additional permit before you go solar, the cost of which would be up to you to cover, although your installer can help you obtain the permit. It might put restrictions on where you can put the solar or how much solar you can put up, and it might even say you can't put solar up at all. Although that Joanne in the video testimonial saw, Bellefonte Borough has, she mentioned, accommodates solar on historical homes, historically designated homes in that municipality with some restrictions, but they found a way to balance those priorities. Oh yeah, real quick, we'll talk about EVs before we break for questions. So this is a solar and EV charger co-op. So you can join the co-op to access, a solar installation, a level 2 electric vehicle charger, or battery backup, or any combination of those three, or just one on its own. There's a strong overlap between people who want solar and people who drive or want to drive electric vehicles. And there's a lot of benefits of pairing those two technologies together. So the common way people charge their car at home is with what's called a level 2 charger. Level 1 chargers are the really slow ones. They plug into a regular electrical outlet. Level 2 are faster than that, 10 to 30 miles of charge per hour. And they need one of those larger 240 volt outlets. This is like the kind that like an electric dryer would plug into. So you might need to get that installed too if you don't have it where your charger is. Typical warranty is 3 years on these. The costs vary a lot, and we don't know what they'll be for this co-op yet, but the charging unit itself, $500, $700, another $500 to $2,000 for the installation, depending on whether you need that extra outlet or not, or additional wiring. And so the total cost could be anywhere between $1,000 and $3,000. But there are a number of incentives available for these, federal and state, and we have information on the Solar Co-op website. I'll talk more about that later, about what incentives might be available to you. Okay. So if you have any questions, we'll go through the ones in the chat now, and you can raise your hand in a moment. We can unmute you if you prefer. Monica, are there any unanswered questions in the chat here?
Yes, we so far have 2. The first one is, are there supply issues with panels or silicon?
Yes, there's supply issues with like everything now. And solar is no exception. So we've had in other solar co-ops we've been running, we've had installers had to say, oh, I know we bid with these panels, but we just can't get any of them in time because they're all backed up at the ports. So we'll need to switch to a equivalent module. So we plan on accommodating that because it's out of the installer's control. But we haven't had a case where the installer hasn't been able to access any solar panels or inverters at all. Usually they're able to switch it out for an equivalent module.
So the second question is, are the utility companies paying decently for energy transferred to the utility, or is it just a kilowatt bank?
So, so this process where your energy flows both ways is called net metering, and we have some of the best net metering in the country in Pennsylvania. And it is a 1-to-1 kilowatt exchange. So that's about as good as it gets around the country. So every kilowatt hour you export to them is worth 1 kilowatt hour you can use later. There are efforts in a lot of places, usually by utilities, and maybe eventually here in Pennsylvania, to weaken or eliminate net metering because utilities see it as a threat to their shareholder profits. You know, we call them public utilities, but they are profit-seeking companies and they're trying to make a buck. We haven't had that happen in Pennsylvania yet, but it might, though there is a lot of evidence. There have been studies out there exploring this question of the value of solar. So what it really is the value of additional solar panel installed in somebody's home and connected to the grid. And what many of those studies show, especially the ones that are very comprehensive and holistic and approach this question, is that the retail price of energy, so what you pay for energy, may actually undervalue, maybe less than the value of that solar energy you're producing, because not only does it have all these environmental values, it's reducing pollution, which reduces healthcare costs for the population. It avoids lost productivity due to health issues caused by pollution. Generation on the distribution grid close to where it's being used reduces wear and tear on the grid. It reduces the need for new capacity new generating capacity to be put on the grid, which saves everybody money. And then also, the more solar there is being generated, on people's homes and on other places, that's less energy that utilities need to buy on the market. That reduces the demand for that energy they're buying on the market. And when you reduce demand, the price goes down, not just for solar owners, but for everybody. So there's all these kind of community benefits from solar energy that, if we really had progressive, really fair net metering in Pennsylvania, you might see solar owners getting more than a kilowatt hour's worth for every kilowatt hour they contribute.
We had another question about if a panel is damaged in a storm, what happens?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure if it would be covered. I think that would not be covered by the warranties on the panels themselves, but on the homeowner's insurance that you have, because I think it counts as a fixture. But I would confirm with your homeowner's insurance policy that kind of thing would be covered.
And one more, what about selling your RECs either through a manager or on your own?
That's a great question. We'll get more into that later on, but in addition to saving money by avoiding using electricity with solar, you also have this separate revenue stream. You're generating solar renewable energy credits. They have their own value. You can sell them, and it kind of helps defray the cost of your solar investment. I'll talk more about those later on in the presentation. Anything else?
I think that's it for now.
Okay. And yes, we will be sharing a recording out, Renee, with everybody who has registered for this. Okay, let's talk about the solar co-op. So the solar co-op is something we've done now, I think over 300 of them around the country. So it is a very well-oiled machine, and we see pretty consistent benefits from this process. One is by aggregating a bunch of consumers together and having them work through one competitively selected installer, you can save money. You can get a better price because you're kind of get these economies of scale, and that installer is saving a lot of money on customer acquisition. They spend a lot of money and time converting a lead into a signed contract, and we can essentially subsidize that process for them by gathering you all together and educating you about solar and doing a lot of publicity about solar. So that means installer saves money and they can give you a more competitive price on installation. Also, equally important is you get a lot of technical guidance from us at Solar United Neighbors through the process. You're not doing this on your own. You're doing this with somebody in your corner who can help you answer technical questions, help you parse the sales pitch you're getting from the installer, and help you make a really informed, confident decision about solar. Even if you don't end up going solar with the now, or with the installer the group picks, maybe you end up choosing another company, you're still armed with this information that can help you make a better decision. It's also more fun. You're connecting with other solar enthusiasts in your community, and you're making a bigger impact, and you're also part of this growing solar movement that we facilitate. So when the co-op is over, it is something that does end once everybody who wants to goes solar. You're still a member of Solar United Neighbors, the nonprofit organization, and we keep you up to date on policy changes. We keep you up to date on technology changes, and help you get the most out of this investment, and also help you fight for the right for more people to go solar like you have. So the co-op is a roughly 8 to 12 month process. We've launched it the beginning of September. So we're still in the early stages, and you are all at step 1 right now. Learn about the solar co-op. If you think this is for you, if you think you probably want to go solar and you want to be a part of this, you join the solar co-op. Now, this is free to do. You never pay us anything to be part of the solar co-op. And it doesn't obligate you to go solar. So you could join the co-op. You can eventually get a proposal from the co-op's installer, see exactly what you would pay, exactly what it would save you, and then you can walk away with no penalty, or you can sign the contract to go solar. So we're not trying to add pressure to this decision about going solar. We'll do a few more of these info sessions. We will work with our local partners to grow the co-op and get new people to join. But one of the most effective ways that the co-op joins is people like you who are in it or considering being in it, telling your friends and neighbors. That is one of the most effective ways that the co-op grows, is that kind of organic growth. And it's really in your interest if you're in the co-op, because the larger the co-op is, the more quickly it grows, the more juicy a prize it is for the installers who are bidding on it. And it encourages them to bid a little bit more aggressively. Now, once we hit around 20 to 30 members, and we are approaching 20 right now, last I checked, Solar United Neighbors starts the process of soliciting bids from solar installers who service this area. We put out a request for proposals, we gather the bids in. We do very little vetting on them. We basically make sure that they're properly licensed, properly insured, and we'll call their customer references and see what their past customers say. But we don't make the decision about who is going to win the solar co-op, and that's because we're vendor neutral. We want to be a trusted advisor for you, rather than somebody who has some kind of arrangement with a particular solar installer. So we gather those bids, and then we ask you co-op members to volunteer to be on a selection committee, to spend one evening reviewing all those bids with us. We help answer technical questions, but that committee decides which company is offering the best deal for this particular group of people. Once that installer is selected, then they get access to the contact information for all the co-op members, and they start contacting people, developing, doing a site visit, developing a customized solar proposal, and giving people contracts that they can decide to sign. And in all this time, we're still working to grow the co-op. We want to get it at least to 100 members, up from that initial 30 or whatever it was when we did the request for proposals. To try to get it as large as possible. It's open to new members until the end of January next year. Then once everybody who wants to has signed a contract and gone solar, we have a celebration. Hopefully this will be next spring, possibly next April. And we talk about the impact of the solar co-op, how much money did everybody save, how much energy we're generating, how many tons of carbon emissions are we abating, how many jobs do we create, share pictures of your solar installations, and also talk about what's next for the solar movement in Pennsylvania. What's on the horizon, how do you get the most out of this investment? And I'm going to run a quick poll here. So as I said, we need your help in spreading the word about the solar co-op and growing this as large as possible. So if you're interested, please indicate yes or maybe here on the poll, and we will be in touch with you this week about some specific ways you might be able to help us spread the word. Let's leave this up for a minute. And while you're filling that out, I'll mention that if you haven't already joined the co-op, one of the things you'll see on the application is we ask you what you're looking for in a good installer: price, strong warranties, maybe you want to be a local company, whatever it is. But all the answers to those questions from everybody in the co-op goes to the selection committee, so they can pick on behalf of the whole solar co-op. So maybe they'll know, all right, everyone here is really, prioritizes low price, so let's pick the company, with the lowest price. Or maybe they want, really strong warranties, so maybe that's a company, maybe that's not the lowest price one, but they offer really strong warranties on the equipment that they're using. Okay, thank you for responding, everyone. I'm going to end this poll here. Okay. Now let's, before we talk economics and cost, are there any questions about the co-op process that people have?
One person asked if Solar United Neighbors has co-ops in other states as well.
We do. We have on the ground programs like that we do here in Pennsylvania, in Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, Minnesota, Ohio, Indiana, Colorado, Arizona, Texas, and Florida. It's kind of a strange selection of states, but we do offer co-ops all over the place. And then for anyone anywhere in the country, we offer free assistance going solar, kind of helping you maybe review proposals from installers or just answering questions you may have.
We have a question. If I don't like who the selection committee chooses, do I have any obligation to continue?
No. And so, you are encouraged to, you'll have one bid you can get from the company who the selection committee picks. And you could go talk to other solar installers, get competing bids, and then compare and decide what the best option is. If you go with a different company other than what the committee picked, there's no penalty for doing that. I see one from Megan here. What do you Solar United Neighbors get out of the arrangement? So we are a grant-funded 501c3 nonprofit. About 3/4 of our funding comes from philanthropic grants or member donations. We do get a little bit of revenue from the solar co-op. Anyone who signs a contract, any co-op member who signs a contract to go solar with the co-op's installer, the installer pays us a $600 referral fee. It's a pretty standard industry arrangement, and it's only if a contract is signed. That is, it's a very small part of our revenue, but it does help us do more solar co-ops like this. But mostly we are a mission-oriented nonprofit organization, and we're doing solar co-ops because, one, we want to see more solar out there, especially rooftop solar. We want consumers to be more informed about the process, and we want to build a movement of solar supporters who can help make it easier for more and more people to go solar. So this kind of helps us. This is the primary way we meet our mission as an organization. Why we do all of this.
What exactly does the 5 to 6 month deadline to sign up refer to? I think this is also a question about what does signing up for the co-op, how is that different?
So signing up for the co-op just means you get access to the technical support from us and the group pricing deal that the selection committee ultimately picks. The co-op does not last forever. So there is a deadline to sign up when we stop recruiting new members, and then there's a point at which it's too late to sign a contract with the installer. That's basically because we can't ask that installer to honor one particular pricing and equipment deal for too long of a period because their own costs are fluctuating over time. Hope that answers your question. Mindy, let us know if I didn't answer your question there.
I think that's it for questions for this section.
Great. All right, let's talk money. Now, the cost of solar has, no surprise, been declining over time. The year-to-year declines are fairly incremental, and it does look like that a lot of the inflationary pressures in the economy are affecting solar as well as supply chain issues. So the year-to-year price decreases now are fairly modest, or might even get a little bit more expensive in the near future, just in the short term. That said, when we look at average installation costs for residential solar and compare it to the prices in our solar co-ops, we see the co-ops do have a fairly reliable discount. It's cheaper to go solar as part of a co-op. We don't guarantee this because we don't control the price. We're not the ones who pick the company. That's up to the selection committee, and they don't always pick the cheapest company. They may think a better deal is from this company with a better track record or something like that. Now, we don't know what price this co-op will get, but we know the average price across all of our Pennsylvania solar co-ops, this is a dozen of them, is $2.55 per watt. And an average size solar installation on a residential installation is around 8 kilowatts. So at that price, the upfront sticker price is around $20,000. After the 26% federal tax credit, it takes you down to $15,000. And then you start saving money with lower electric bills. And we've seen in Pennsylvania, typically 8 to 12 years, it'll take you to save as much as you spent going solar. But then you have that system lasting until 25 or 30 years, and all that on top of it is just gravy. It's just profit. You've paid for the system and you're just getting free energy. Now, of course, we're making a lot of assumptions with this example. So your own mileage may vary. Your installer on the proposal should be able to give you specific numbers for your expected production and savings and costs. And then, as we said before, there's also a separate revenue stream you get through solar renewable energy credits, SRECs or SRECs. So every time your system generates 1,000 kilowatt hours of energy, you earn 1 SREC. And that SREC has a cash value. It's bought and sold on a market. It's generally bought by electric utilities who have to get a certain amount of energy from solar in Pennsylvania. The goal is really low. It's just 0.5% of their energy. So there's not a lot of demand for those SRECs from utilities. If we had a higher goal, there would be more demand, and that SREC value would be higher, and solar owners would get more money. The SREC is meant to represent kind of the environmental value of your solar energy, because that's not really reflected in the market price. So it's a way to kind of get closer to a fair compensation for the value of solar. In states with much more aggressive renewable energy targets, like Maryland or DC, you have much higher SREC values. DC, I think, is still the highest priced SREC in the country in Washington, DC, because they have very aggressive solar energy goals. And their SRECs are like over $400 there, as opposed to Pennsylvania, where it's more like 20 or 30. So this is really a direct result of policy choices that we've made in Pennsylvania. Now, I mentioned the tax credit. So it is a federal tax credit. It's an income tax credit. It's not a tax deduction. It's a non-refundable credit. So you go solar this year, and then when you do your taxes next year for 2021, your tax bill will be reduced by 26% of your total cost of going solar, including batteries, if you do it. Now, if you don't have enough tax liability to use that entire 26%, it's not refundable, so you don't get an extra check, but you can roll it over multiple years to reduce multiple years' tax bill. Now it's 26% this year, it's 26% next year too, and then only systems installed after 2022 will start to shrink down to 22%, and then the next year 0%. Of course, this is one of the things Congress may be doing in its an infrastructure bill or these budget negotiations. We don't know what will come out of it, but hopefully the tax credit will be improved, but I wouldn't bank on it until that bill is signed into law. Now, there are also incentives to install EV chargers and purchase electric vehicles. There's federal incentives, Pennsylvania incentives, and often local incentives. You can save up to $1,000 in just the charger itself. We have a lot of information about available electric vehicle and charger incentives on the co-op webpage. And Monica, could you please stick that link in the chat here where people can find that information. I think if you can get the one right to the incentives update. Thank you. So when you're going solar, you can pay cash. This means you have a high upfront cost and you're saving over time, and you're going to maximize your total lifetime savings from solar. But if you'd rather avoid that big upfront cost, you can finance your installation through some kind of loan. It's really a whole array of different loans you can use to pay for solar. You could refinance your mortgage and use those proceeds on a solar system. You can use a home equity line of credit, which may be one of the most cost-effective options for you. Standard personal or business loans. There's solar-specific loans out there that many lenders are offering. Some are offering them through solar installers, so your installer might have some loans that they'll direct you towards. And then also, if you're a member of a Solar United Neighbors co-op, you get access to loans from both the Clean Energy Credit Union and the Community First Credit Union. They have fairly competitive interest rates. And then, because they're credit unions, their fees are very low. So a lot of people will use this financing to avoid often high fees you might get with different types of loans. We have a lot more information about solar financing on our website at solarunitedneighbors.org/financing. And thanks, Monica, for putting the link right in there in the chat. Okay, before we wrap up, any questions about anything I said tonight or anything I didn't say? You can put them in the chat or you can raise your hand. No questions. All right. Okay, well, what's next for you is if you think you're probably ready to go solar and you want to do it with the solar co-op, you can join the co-op online at solarunitedneighbors.org/Center County. Remember, it's free to join and it doesn't obligate you to go solar. It just gives you access to support from us and the group pricing deal. One of the first things we do when we get your application is we do a virtual, remote roof review, and we'll tell you if we think you're probably okay for solar or if we think your roof is, too small, too busy, or too shaded, and we'll let you know that. And then please, invite your friends and neighbors. The larger we can get this, the better. The larger we can get this, the more competitively installers will bid on it. If you have any questions, you can also reach out to us at pateam@solarunitedneighbors.org, and Monica or I or one of our colleagues will get back to you as soon as we can. And that's it. I want to thank you all for spending your Sunday afternoon with us. Do reach out if you have any questions. And
Henry, we did have one question, sorry.
Oh, okay.
What would be the estimated timeline for installation?
Probably spring or summer next year. So installers are pretty busy from now until the end of the year. So we anticipate anyone who bids on this will say, we got a backlog until January or so. So these will be almost certainly 2022 calendar year installations.
And related, is the EV charging and solar processes, are they done together or separately?
Yeah, so there's one installer selection process, and pretty much any installer will do all three of these technologies: solar, charger, and batteries. So it's all one process, and that installer will bid with prices and equipment offerings for each of those three things. I see Carlos's question here about how important to have a battery installed. It's really only useful if you want backup power during power outages. They're fairly expensive, so people don't kind of install them as a rule. And there's a lot of battery brands out there. We don't know what these installers who will ultimately bid on this will offer, so we'll find that out. But there's a lot of choices there in the market. Okay, last call for questions. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I hope you learned something. I hope to see your name pop up in our list of roofs to be reviewed. Thank you, Betsy, for joining and speaking. Thank you, Monica, for helping out with the questions and the links. And enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everyone.